In the early morning, in the elegantly decorated room, a handsome man sat quietly by the window. He was holding a beautifully bound book of creation myths and reading it carefully. It looked like a beautiful oil painting. The sun shines on him through the window, adding a sense of sacredness to this elegance and beauty. But at the next moment, a gloomy aura suddenly spread, and the originally warm and elegant room suddenly lost its color, and the grey and white color covered every inch of the corner, and a pale monster poked its head from the floor. It looks like a person for the time being, its limbs show an unnatural, spring-like twisted state, and a long, erect mouth full of sharp teeth extends from the top of his head to his chest, with saliva accompanying him. The opening and closing of that big mouth kept pulling into filaments. But the elegant and beautiful man didn't have any negative emotions because of the appearance of this monster. He still held the creation myth, as if he didn't see anything. No, he saw it, because the monster was raising his twisted arms respectfully, and handed over a notebook that looked some years old and an envelope. The handsome man stretched out his hand to pick up two things, the monster disappeared into the room, and the cold and pale environment returned to its original state again. The man put the notebook on the table, tore open the envelope, and shook off the small stack of letter paper inside. Dear Mr. A, please allow me to defend the killing of my colleague. Henathan Vincent and Sirius Arpes are utter idiots, and their stupidity would even make curly baboons laugh. Henathan Vincent foolishly wrote the secret spell in a notebook. His apprentice peeked at the incantation, and performed a magic mirror divination under the gaze of the pagans at night. I believe you can think of the next development, so I won't go into details. In order to protect our other lambs in Tingen, I killed him first. I think this is the right choice. The stupidity of Sirius Arpes was even further than that of Heneth Vincent. He even went to the library to borrow books, knowing that the Nighthawks had begun to investigate the Antigenus family's notes. Related journals. This kind of reckless behavior has been discovered for more than 2 months, and it is already blessed by the Lord. In order to avoid more involvement, I killed the nighttime pagan after he tracked down the library. This is a reasonable choice. Also, during the battle between the nighttime pagans and the secret order, I recaptured the notebook of the fourth epoch. According to Henathan Vincent, it probably contains the treasure left by the Antigonus family. I dedicate this notebook to the Lord, hoping to make up for the sin of killing the Lord's secret petitioner. Finally, Sirius Arpes seems to have taught the ceremony of the coming of the Lord to an unknown fraudster. Do I need to help? The Lord's loyal servant, Snow von Penredakes. Hat. The handsome man rubbed his fingers slightly, and the letter paper in his hand was torn to shreds by the suddenly rolled up air current. He stretched out his hand and opened the notebook, accompanied by words that appeared in his eyes. A slightly evil smile appeared on Zhang's beautiful face. The city of Tingen. Captain, is this the last suspect's residence? Leonard looked at the hotel outside the carriage through the carriage's window, lowered his head and took out a pocket watch from the inside of the police uniform and glanced at it. It's still early, it looks like it won't delay Klein's mission to join the team. Don't be careless. The grey-eyed middle-aged man sitting beside him frowned. The corners of his eyes were clearly wrinkled, and light brown hair could be seen on the edge of his hat. At this time, he was holding a piece of paper full of words, and said in a not too big, but very clear voice, Snow von Penredakes, a native of Backlund, a veterinarian, once went to the Diviner Club half a month ago to ask Heneth Vincent to do divination, and he stayed in the hotel without going out. According to the information provided by Backlund, he had had a relationship with the mistress of a certain gangster before this, and the reason for leaving Backlund should be to avoid pursuit. It sounds weird. Leonard listened to Dunn's remarks, whistled frivolously, and then turned to look at Klein. Before he could speak, Klein nodded in agreement, took out a piece of paper from his bag, wrote a line of words on it, and then released the pendulum on his wrist and closed his eyes as he did before investigating other suspects. Silently said, "It's dangerous to investigate Snow von Penredakes, it's dangerous to investigate Snow von Penredakes, investigate." After meditating 7 times in a row, Klein opened his eyes, and the citron pendulum was spinning counterclockwise at a slow speed. He breathed a sigh of relief, then said, "Captain, there shouldn't be any danger, but considering that the other party may have anti-divination abilities, be careful." "Well, you stay in the car, Leonard, you come with me." Dunn nodded lightly, opened the car door, got off the carriage, and walked all the way to the hotel. In a room on the second floor of the Fragrance Tree Hotel, a young man in a white shirt and a black vest was teasing a black lone short-hair cat that looked less than a year old. He was the target of Klein and Dunn's investigation. The young veterinarian named Snow von Penrudakes. At the moment when the pendulum divination in the carriage started, Snow's spirituality was induced, but he didn't stop shaking the hands of the cat stick, just adjusted his mood and waited quietly. Then, "Seems a little sleepy?" With the thought, Snow's whole body shuddered, and then he heard a slightly hasty knock on the door. "Who is it?" Snow picked up the black kitten and put it on his shoulders, raised his feet to the door, and there was a calm and powerful male voice outside the door, Dunn Smith. "Sure enough, it's you." Snow sighed secretly in his heart. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com reached out and opened the door, and a middle-aged police officer with deep grey eyes appeared in front of him. "This police officer, you are?" Snow frowned slightly, and there was a hint of suspicion in his eyes. Dunn didn't talk nonsense, he took out his credentials and showed it, and then said directly, "We suspect that you are involved in a murder case and hope you can assist in the investigation." "Murder case?" Snow was stunned for a moment, then suddenly excited, "I haven't been out for half a month. The people in the hotel can testify for me. I know, it's just a routine." Dunn reassured him, then looked inside the room and said, "Aren't you going to invite me in to sit down?" "Okay, please come in." Snow nodded and opened the door, then spread his hands and said, "It's just a hotel, there's no decent tea." "It's okay, I'll leave after I ask." Dunn found a place to sit down, took out a stack of documents, and said, "Do you know Kenneth Vincent?" "Yes, I asked him for a fortune-telling when I went to the fortune-teller club half a month ago. The fortune-telling he gave me is that it is not suitable to go out recently, so I haven't left the hotel for more than half a month." Snow nodded without hesitation. Nodding, as if impressed by the fortune-teller. "Why do you believe so much in the words of a fortune-teller who has only met once?" Dunn's grey eyes stared at the young man's eyes. Snow sighed and said helplessly, "If a person can judge your life based on simple divination, I believe you will also choose to listen to his advice, not to mention that this matter is life-threatening." "Life-threatening?" Dunn's eyes sharpened. Snow immediately realized that he had said something wrong, and a wry smile appeared on his face. "Dear Mr. Police, I'm a veterinarian." "Well, you may not know the treatment of this profession in Backlund. In short, this is a more popular profession than most doctors. After all, pets raised by noble families are less popular. It is also said to be hundreds of gold pounds, and you should understand that many gentlemen and young ladies who pride themselves on being decent, all their savings in their families cannot reach this number. So what?" Listening to Snow's introduction to his profession, Dunn nodded lightly, and then asked along his words. "So? It's normal for a young, rich man, and a good-looking man to be a bit feminine, right?" Snow waved his arms exaggeratedly, and a sultry temperament was immediately apparent. Dunn is also an old nightmare. He has seen many people's dreams, and he is quite experienced in this situation, but before he can react, he sees Snow suddenly slump down as if his color had faded. In a tone like a drunken man who had drunk too much, he said, "But who would have thought that that woman was actually the mistress of the waltz party? I should have known she was such a background, and she would not be provoked by death. I even suspect that this is what they set for me. Let me tell you, those Backlund gangsters and Tingens gangsters are not the same concept at all, they are real murderers without blinking an eye." Seeing Snow's emotions becoming more and more hysterical, Dun immediately comforted him, "Since you are so scared, go to the police station with me. After confirming that you are fine, we will protect you." Police station? Also, do you have a single room in your prison? It's better to lock me up, the kind that no one can visit. Oh, of course, the food is better, fish and chips or something is the bottom line. You can't forcing my middle class earning more than £50 a month to eat those pig food. Listening to Snow's words, Dun's mouth twitched slightly, although he knew that people's thinking in a dream is very easy to stray, but such a self-reliant requirement, it was the first time he heard it. However, he did not relax his vigilance because of this, but continued to maintain the development of the dream, taking Snow along the way to the police station. About 15 minutes later, seeing Captain and Leonard appearing at the door of the hotel again, Klein's dangling heart finally relaxed, and he couldn't help but ask when the two entered the carriage again, how? His behavior in the dream is also normal, and there are no obvious contradictions in his words. I have tried to give him many opportunities to escape, but he has always maintained a submissive attitude. Even when there is danger on the road, he will directly hiding behind me, as if my side is the safest place. Well, this is in line with the expectations of ordinary people with small assets for the police. Yes, only those who have something in their heart will seize the opportunity to escape, just like me. Dun's words undoubtedly reminded Klein of his previous dream, and he couldn't help but slander, and then he turned to look at Leonard again. Feeling Klein's gaze, Leonard spread his hands and said, "There are no extraordinary objects in his room, and there are no traces of climbing on the windows. Although there is perfume in the box, it is just an ordinary men's perfume, not the essential oil or pure dew needed for ritual magic, the only thing that can be related to the occult. It's an antique silver knife, but it's only 300 or 400 years old. It's not an extraordinary item. If there's anything abnormal about him, he's just too handsome. He's only a little worse than me. Well, I admit, he's a little more handsome than me." The frivolous words as always softened the serious atmosphere. As the carriage started again, the conversation of several people began to turn to Klein's upcoming mission to join the team. Watching the carriage leave, Snow, who had already escaped from the dream, gently rubbed the little milk cat who was licking his paws. Although he knew that he had probably passed the test, he still did not let his guard down, and just lay casually on the bed. In a daze lazily. Then Vincent died, and my notes were cut off by me. The two opportunities that added to Dun's mental burden have been removed by me. Next, let's see how the poor screenwriter will change the script. Just as Snow was thinking about it, an image of a horse made of white clouds suddenly appeared in his mind. As the horse ran in his mind, his ears began to murmur, "The Lord of Mysteries is just a novel." There are many readers who have read it, but they have not been polluted, and have not been watched by high-ranking existences because of this, so I will not be polluted by the knowledge obtained in the story of the Lord of Mysteries. And watching the sound layer upon layer, repeatedly, constantly stimulates Snow's nerves, and along with this process, his spirituality is also rapidly lost like a river bursting its banks, but the strange thing is that almost every second, he will be taking away the spirituality equivalent to 1/4 of the current total spirituality, but his spirituality has always been maintained at 3/4. The whispering in his ear lasted for a full minute before it finally stopped, and only then did Snow finally breathe a sigh of relief and withdrew from the semi-meditation state. It must be that broken pen again. It's really dying. Can a writer play without cutting? Gently rubbing his throbbing eyebrows, Snow slowly adjusted his mental state. The world of the Lord of Mysteries is such a pit. Without a strong enough golden finger, the traversers of the dragon and Aotian have to kneel when they come. Yes, Snow is indeed a traveler, and he is the most tragic type. Travelers from other worlds are familiar with the plot, which means that the resources of the entire world are taken away, and the mysterious world, not to mention the plot bonus. Knowledge itself is poisonous. In fact, it is enough to penetrate the world of the Lord of Mysteries. The worst thing is that when he woke up, a crazy beauty was sitting in front of him, looking at a cup of green as if he was scooped out of a guldan pot. The viscous liquid with bubbles was pushed in front of him, and he almost said, "Drink it, this is your destiny." In other words, his golden fingers are powerful, otherwise he would be a member of the crazy group of beauties. As for his golden finger, it really has a lot to do with it. 1. It is a source quality called white horse is not a horse, and the other is the uniqueness of the sequence corresponding to it 1-foot chime. This source quality and uniqueness does not belong to the 22 or even the sequence of the original work, nor is it mentioned in the original work. It originated from the alien sequence of the old days in the starry sky. If he insisted on giving it a position, Snow felt that this thing was more like what was mentioned in the original work. Before the birth of the blasphemy slate, the way those extraordinary species were promoted, this is the so-called cross-channel medication. Anyone who has read the original book of Lord of Mysteries knows that taking medicines across different routes is a very dangerous thing. Losing oneself and becoming crazy are the lightest things. A little carelessness will lead to a direct loss of control. If the human body is compared to a game, then potions are like mods. Potions of the same sequence are a series of mods. As long as they are played in sequence, there is no problem. The mods of adjacent sequences are compatible mods under certain conditions, and after the basic mods, lomdium sequences, are applied, they can be switched. As for the non-adjacent paths, they are naturally conflicting mods. If you hit them casually, the game will crash. However, the path provided by Snow Goldfinger violates this rule. Each sequence of it is directly promoted by taking the potions of other sequences. The reason for this is that this origin quality called white horse is not a horse has the function of putting the spiritual imprint of this sequence into the potion. It's like putting a compatibility patch on the mod. For example, when he was an ordinary person back then, he was promoted to sequence 9's Bryden's donkey by taking the secret prayer potion. When he wants to be promoted to sequence 8's Pavlov's dog, in addition to taking the listener potion that also belongs to the secret prayer path, he can also drink Broken Wings Angel, Madman, Beast Tamer. 3 kinds of potions of sequence 8 have been promoted. However, the compatibility patch is just a compatibility patch, and there is no problem with the compatibility after it is applied, but small bugs such as wearing mold, breaking skin, and feet off the ground are unavoidable. White Horse Famous transformation of the potion just added a stronger spiritual imprint, which means that the original spiritual imprint in the potion has not been removed, so Snow must digest 2 spiritual imprints at the same time when digesting the potion. Of course, this does not mean that Snow has to play 2 roles at the same time, because the paradox approach is mandatory. To put it simply, it is a negative state equivalent to forced play in principle. Once you try to resist, it will slide in the direction of loss of control. Just like the Britain's donkey he currently holds, while playing the role of the secret prayer person to digest the potion, he also carries a debuff called difficulty in choice. Once there are 2 relatively equal options, unless give reasons for your choice, otherwise you'll get stuck in a stalemate because you can't make a choice, and if you try to force a choice, you'll start to spin out of control until you stop the dangerous behavior or become a monster outright. Fortunately, apart from this debuff that will be weakened with the progress of the potion digestion, this behavior of taking medicine across the route will not increase the risk of additional loss of control, nor will it affect the potential for continued promotion. The only difference is that after promotion, acquired extraordinary abilities. Take his current Britain's donkey as an example. The characteristics of this sequence 9 are that it has endurance and inspiration that is twice as high as that of ordinary people, has a certain identification ability, and has considerable knowledge and talent of ritual magic. And the potions it needs are 3 kinds of divinator, monster, and secret prayer. According to the different medicines, there will be a certain tendency to change. Drinking monster potions is more inspirational, and secretly praying for human potions can get more knowledge of ritual magic. But for Snow now, these are actually secondary. The most important function of this origin quality is actually the ability it possesses in a higher sequence of the pathway. For example, it blocks star pollution, true God's gaze, and the most important power perceived by 008 stolen concept. From the point of view of consumption, the sequence to which this ability belongs should not be high, but if it is activated through the source material, it can obtain the blessing of the person of the true level. It's just that powerful abilities are often accompanied by huge costs. The reason why Snow can support this ability that can even block the pollution of the starry sky is entirely because of the uniqueness that has been completely integrated with him. One Fu trick. In a sense, Snow can be regarded as Amon's uniqueness, but he doesn't have beyonder characteristics. As the so-called 1 foot long, half of the day, inexhaustible, this unique ability is simple and rude. It is the manifestation of the authority of the paradox path, and directly distorts the rules of infinite subdivision and orders of magnitude, almost able to unlimited output spirituality. And as a price, only half of Snow's spirituality is rendered unusable. If there is any deficiencies, it is that the upper limit of this unique output spirituality is only a quarter of Snow's total spirituality. It is with this kind of power that is almost a perpetual motion machine that Snow can turn on the white horse is not a horse around the clock, in order to resist the risks brought by the knowledge in his brain from Master of Mysteries. The headache caused by the white horse not being activated gradually subsided. Snow pulled himself up, pushed the window open a gap, and reached out and gently pressed the top of the little milk cat's head. Start to pass. However, the consumption this time is not exaggerated, it is only a little bit faster than Snow's spiritual recovery speed in the semi-meditation state. As his spirituality was extracted, Snow found a comfortable position to lie down, and Yu read www.yuuganshu.com and the little milk cat turned into a black light, and with a swish, jumped out of the window. The lone short-hair cat, as the name suggests, is a native breed of lone. Because of its docile personality and excellent adaptability, it is widely loved by all walks of life. They are also loved among the commoners, and even in the age of great voyages, they were once bred as ship cats. In such a big environment, a kitten wandering the streets is not a big concern, even if it runs much faster than its peers. After all, in the eyes of most people, a cat is an elusive animal. In the dilapidated courtyard, on the second floor of the grey-blue house, in the unlit bedroom, a young girl with a round face, gentle and sweet, is sitting in front of the dressing table, playing with a puppet that is not so delicate. But at this moment, her spirituality suddenly had a hunch. Almost subconsciously, she turned her eyes to the silver mirror placed at the foot of the dresser, but there was nothing on the deliberately polished mirror. Strange. You rely too much on beyonder abilities. A slightly shrill voice came from above her head, and the girl almost instantly touched the hidden pocket around her waist, but the next moment, she stopped the movement of her hands. She looked up at the black kitten who had entered the room at some point, and said with a cold face, "Didn't I give you the contact information? I don't have the heart to communicate in the way that witches give, as if you never have to deliver things by sacrificing to my lord." The kitten specially emphasized the pronunciation of the word witch, and the girl frowned slightly. Wrinkled, but still said, "I've already got the notes you asked for, what else?" "Don't be so serious." The cat shook its slender tail gently, jumped off the cabinet lightly, and walked gracefully on the catwalk. "I just came to remind you that what you did was a little too obvious." The girl's originally relaxed body suddenly tightened, and then she stared at the kitten and said, "What did you say? Isn't that just acting like that little thing? Even if you are reaping the lifespan of dying people, you are playing too straight. At least kill one and then prepare for the next one. The flaws in your batch of preparations are really too obvious. Ah! People can't get this place to cut wool. And why do you think witches are going to cause death? It is a witch who curses and kills others, so isn't it a witch who fortunes? Even to the extreme, the point of this role is to be hated, feared, and repelled by others. Killing or something is just a means to bring about this effect. Oh, I see. Are you enjoying the thrill of taking your life? Or simply afraid of trouble? Tisk tisk, I think it would be more troublesome to get knocked on the door by the Nighthawks. Don't forget, you're just acting." Kitten said the old-fashioned lines in a voice as thin as a little girl, and the girl immediately showed an unbelievable look. "You really know? How could you possibly know? I've only just begun to prepare. Why is it impossible? If you can reverse the divination, you don't want others to reverse the divination? Nothing is absolute in the mysterious world. You have changed so many old nests, can't I find the same door? Listen to my brother's advice, don't be too anxious, otherwise, it is easy to be affected by the spiritual imprint in the potion. You're just acting, not going to be the one the potion points to. Of course, if you want to turn into a woman from body to heart before turning back into a man, take it as if I didn't say it." The cat circled around the girl, occasionally raising its head to glance at the bottom of the girl's skirt, and then making a tisk-tisk sound. The girl didn't get angry about the cat's hooliganism. She just sat back on the chair in front of the dressing table. She was clearly condescending, but she asked in a weak voice, "Do I really have a chance to become a man? Don't pretend to be pitiful to me, I've already told you very clearly, except for the orphan sequence of monsters, all beyonder pathways have at least one adjacent pathway, and when the adjacent pathway is promoted from sequence 5 to sequence 4, they are interchangeable, and the sequence 4 of an adjacent pathway in the assassin sequence just happens to turn women into men." The cat climbed onto the dressing table with ease, maintaining the same height as the girl, and continued, "I'm just your transaction partner, not your godfather, and I don't plan to taste the witch's taste, so if you want more information, please pay me the corresponding reward, or simply find a way to prove it yourself. I got you that notebook of the 4th epoch before. It's a high-level extraordinary item that can replace extraordinary materials. Sister, can you speak to your conscience? I'll even tell you where to hide and when to take action. You're just going out and picking up a bargain when everyone loses, so you can change it to something that doesn't go against your masculine thinking. The way to play a witch is already very out of the ordinary, not to mention that I just gave you the core of the witch role for nothing." "Hey!" The girl listened to the cat's words, took a deep breath, and then slowly spit it out. After repeating this several times, she adjusted her mind and stared at the cat and said, "Tell me, how can you tell me the name of the pathway adjacent to the pathway at the moment, and what the sequence 4 is? Is there anything else that can be exchanged for you?" The cat tilted its head in disdain, and glanced back and forth on the girl, as if thinking about what remaining value could be extracted. "The potion formula of the assassin pathway, from sequence 9 to sequence 7. The girl stared at the black cat in front of her and said solemnly. The cat turned her head and showed a humane smile, "Do you think I am short of potions? You can use it to train your subordinates." The girl looked directly into the cat's eyes. "The versatility of the assassin potion is the top among all potions, whether it is functional or unhealthy." The cat listened to the girl's words, and fell into a brief silence. After a while, it raised its head and said, "Okay, I've invested in it. If I write down the recipe, my reputation should be pretty good." The girl didn't delay this time, she picked up a pen from the table and started writing. The cat watched the words written by the girl, while Snow was simultaneously copying the contents of the recipe. "The formula of this potion is real." Snow meditated in his heart while communicating his spirituality. He tossed a gold coin up high, and the cat on the other side smiled as it turned face up. "Very good, then the transaction is established. The sequence adjacent to the assassin pathway is the hunter pathway, and the name of the sequence 4 is the jagged knight. Iron-blooded knight." The girl nodded, but still stared at the cat and said, "What about the gifts?" "Hey!" The cat showed an inexplicable expression, but the girl said solemnly, "Isn't there a gift every time I trade with you? Please, I'm giving you a gift because I'm in a good mood, not a deal, I'll definitely give you a gift." The cat helplessly spread out its front paws, but the girl narrowed her eyes and said, "So what? Is there any?" "No." The cat tilted his head, but the girl suddenly stood up, holding the corner of the skirt in both hands and said, "Is it because I make you feel better, you will give it a gift? Put away your pretentious tricks. I'm a cat now, and the temptation of human females is useless to me. And at least show a little when tempting people." You reading www.yuyugonshu.com. You can't even lift your knees. It's not sincere at first glance. The cat glanced at the transformed boss with disdain, and after seeing that her face was obviously starting to turn red, she turned her head and said, "A complete set of assassin's potions. I will tell you some secrets closely related to the witch sect, and by the way, I will also give you the identity of an iron-blooded knight. Of course, they are demigods after all, and it is your own if you can hunt them." Something happened. "It's closely related to me." The girl didn't care about the position of the so-called jagged knight, but focused on the relationship. Since they met this cat on the night of becoming a witch, they have made many transactions. Although this cat has an outrageous character, its reputation is not bad. Since he said that it is closely related to himself, the problem may not be too small. Well, to put it simply, it's why the witch sect insists on feeding men to eat assassin potions. By the way, you are their most satisfying work so far. Hearing the word work that was deliberately emphasized, a bad premonition arose in the girl's heart. She nodded and said, "The materials for assassin's potion are not rare. It should be available in Tinjin's black market. Even if it happens not to be available, I can get it from the witch sect in the name of training my subordinates. We will make an appointment in 3 days at the latest. You can do this by offering sacrifices to my lord. No, either you give me an address, or you can pick it up yourself." The girl firmly rejected the cat's proposal. The cat spread its paws and said helplessly, "Is it so unacceptable to pray to the Lord? That kind of evil who has never heard of it, even an occult idiot wouldn't pray easily, right?" Accompanied by a black light entering the room, Snow, who was lying on the bed, immediately bounced up, closed the gap in the window, and stretched out his hand to scratch the little guy's chin lightly. As the little guy hummed me, the original agility in his eyes gradually faded away, leaving only a little bit of shrewdness, proving that this kitten is not ordinary. Snow rubbed the little guy's head with a smile, replenished the cat's energy, and then took out a bag of cat food from the suitcase. After the little guy started eating, Snow began to wander again. Although the plan has already been made, when it is actually implemented, he is still a little hesitant. I have to admit that this is a dangerous move. Compared with letting Triss go to grab the Antigonus family's notes, it is better than killing Nathan Fansant and Sirius Arpes in time. It would be dangerous to face Dunsmith in a dream. If you don't pay attention, the next thing waiting for you will be the basement of the Church of the Evernight Goddess. But there is no other choice. Snow opened his arms and fell backwards, lying on the bed in a big shape. In all, it has been a month since he crossed. In other words, it has been a month since he drank the secret prayer potion. A month is not too long for most Beyonders, but for the secret prayers of the Aurora Society, it is a very dangerous period. And the reason lies in acting. For the vast majority of Beyonders, the acting method is a precious treasure. With this skill, they can safely avoid the risk of losing control, but for the secret prayer, the acting method is a big pit. Because secret prayer rules are too straightforward, just like its name, as long as you are devout, you just need to pray to the hidden existence. As a member of the extreme cult organization, the Aurora Society, it is self-evident who to pray to. But the problem is precisely here. As a true of Sequence 0, the real creator belongs to the top group among the hidden existences that can be prayed for. Because of this, the performance feedback obtained by praying to him is simply perfect, even if it is no matter how stupid the secret prayer person is, as long as he prays to him sincerely, within 2 months, he will be able to completely digest the potion. But on the other hand, if there is a secret prayer person who has not finished digesting after 2 months, that means that he is not religious enough. As for the extreme cult group like the Aurora Society, if it is labeled as impious, the consequences can be imagined. During this month, Feng Shuixi also tried to imitate Mr. K and prayed to himself, trying to respond to himself through the personality of a white horse instead of a horse, so as to get feedback, but I don't know because his path does not belong to the world, or he knew in his heart that he was not a high-ranking existence, or for some other reason. In short, although Snow could use the power of a white horse and not a horse to make a spell, the feedback he received was minimal. Later, he also thought about whether he could find other acting rules, such as preaching. Although it cannot be said that it is useless, it is better than nothing. Today, the digestion progress of Snow's potion is even less than 1/10. Even the 3-year-old, 5-year-old protagonist, Mr. K, spent a month and a half in the role of Sequence 9. The month that has passed is already the deadline Snow set for him. Now, everything has not yet ushered in a turning point, and he has finally arrived, the time to make a choice. He sealed the room with silver coins infused with spirituality, and Snow took out the 300-year-old silver knife and inserted it on the table. Then, he took the initiative to turn on the white horse and not the horse, and activated the ability to steal the concept of exchange. Feeling that the spirituality in his body began to pulsate, Snow began to meditate in his heart. Derek was able to directly pray to Mr. Fool by relying on the antiquities in his hand. The knife in my hand is also an antiquity, so I can also directly pray to Mr. Fool through this knife. Repeated silently several times, this sentence began to turn into layers of whispers that echoed in Snow's ears, accompanied by a tingling pain in his brain, and a trace of connection began to meet somewhere above the dagger and the spiritual world. And Snow also began to recite the lines he had already prepared. Great Being, I ask for your response, I ask for your attention. Is it another prayer? Klein, who was still feeling helpless about can't understand foreign languages, was about to leave the grey fog, but found that another crimson star began to shrink and expand. Isn't there another one who uses the ancient dragon language this time? Klein secretly murmured in his heart, but he chose to extend his spirituality and touched the crimson star. Then, a blurred and distorted picture appeared in his field of vision. It was a young man who could vaguely see broken black hair, and in front of him should be a sterling silver dagger. Above his head, a white cloud that looks like a horse is looming. I don't know if it is because of the relationship of the sequence or the influence of some extraordinary item. The young man was wearing relatively homely clothes, and the surrounding environment was simple and tidy, but judging from the furnishings in the house, it should be a guest room of a hotel. Klein had planned to observe again, but as the voice of the young man entered his ears, he immediately lost interest in watching, because he heard a few words heavily knocked in his heart. The evil is about to come to Tianjin. However, when he was about to listen carefully, he suddenly found that the young man had stood up and said in a dejected tone, "Failed again, is this ritual really effective? Do I have to report it to the Church of the Righteous God? But I have already." Or, Yu Kanshu www.yuyuganshu.com gave up the glory of the Pandora Dax family and joined the evil god. No, no. It doesn't matter. No way to pray to the true Creator. Seeing that the young man's words became more and more hysterical, and even the language he used changed from ancient Hermes to Ruin's common language, Klein's brows were furrowed, and he couldn't think of the slightly familiar surname Panradakes. He got up, but he understood the words Righteous God Church, Report, True Creator, etc., and then contacted the previous sentence that the evil will come to Tianjin, and a strong sense of crisis suddenly surfaced in his heart. It's just that this young man has already left the state of prayer. It doesn't take long before this link will be broken. It seems impossible to rely on secret observation to obtain information. Taking a deep breath, Klein tapped the edge of the long bronze table, already making up his mind. Although it was a bit reckless, it was about Tianjin, and he had to figure it out. Did you fail? It's impossible to succeed all at once. Do you want to do something big tonight, and then use this as an opportunity to sell it to Mr. Fool tomorrow? It was a bit frustrating, but failure was already in his calculations. With the mentality of making a show and doing a full set, he returned to the table and was about to pull out the dagger when he suddenly saw an explosion in the dagger. Crimson light. This light was like flowing water, instantly drowning Snow's figure. When he regained his ability to think, he found himself in the midst of the towering power supply supported by huge stone pillars, an ancient and mottled bronze. The long table stretched out in front of him. On the opposite side of the long table, a figure shrouded in grey fog was looking at him with an indistinct line of sight. His emotions are very excited, worried, as well as ecstatic and a little vigilant. Klein quietly turned on his spiritual vision, and judged the other party's mental state through the youth's aura, while Snow, who was standing opposite the long bronze table, he quickly reacted and said in a humble tone he learned from the Aurora Society, "Praise you, great and benevolent being, Snow von Penridax salutes you." Snow? It's the suspect during the day. Klein finally rang out where he had heard the surname Penridax, but he restrained the surprise in his heart well, and said in a leisurely and relaxed tone, "Don't be too cautious, you can call me, fool." Just as soon as the words came out, Klein suddenly found that the young man's expression became more and more humble. He bowed deeply and lowered his head. Why did he react like this? Before, although he had a humble tone, he was only polite and respectful to the weak when facing the strong, but now he has completely regarded himself as a subordinate. Could it be that the title of fool has anything to do with it? What special meaning? Klein even forgot the real intention of pulling the other party up for a while, but soon, he suppressed the doubts in his heart. Compared with the issue of honor, what is more important now is the safety of Tingen. He carefully considered his tone, and then said in a playful tone, "Relax, I'm a little interested in your previous prayer, talk about it. Please forgive my rudeness, but I opened my mouth when I was praying." Snow touched his chest with one hand, bowed in a salute, and then raised his head and said, "Dear Mr. Fool, I come from a secret and ancient family. Although the family has decayed, it has left behind a lot of precious books and secrets. In the process of pursuing the glory of my ancestors, I accidentally encountered the Aurora Society, in order to save my life. I had to join this organization. They forced me to drink the mystic potions. Those madmen don't care about the loyalty of their members, because as long as they want to digest the mystic potions, they have to pray to the mysterious beings, but as you probably know, the true creator has already fallen into crazy. Once you pray to him, your spirit will inevitably be distorted. Although I relied on an extraordinary item handed down by my family to fake the appearance of devout prayers, according to the practice of the Aurora Society, if I do not digest the magic potion for 2 months, it will be regarded as disloyal to the true creator. I was executed, so I hope to be able to pray to you secretly to digest the secret prayer potion." The Aurora Society? Is that the organization that only appeared in the past 100 or 200 years and believes in the true creator? Correct. The incantation of Hineth Fansant did point to the true creator, but, the real creator has fallen into madness? This Snow, or the Penridax family from which he was born, seems to know a lot of secrets. He took the risk of praying to the hidden existence with rituals inherited from the family. Was it because he played the role of the secret prayer person to digest the potion? Also, is the extraordinary item he mentioned the same white horse I saw earlier? Klein thought silently in his heart, and then asked in a casual tone like talking about market gossip, "You seem to have mentioned before that the evil is coming." "Yes, esteemed Mr. Fool." Snow nodded and said in a respectful tone with a hint of worry, "The members of the Aurora Society are a group of lunatics. They are planning the arrival of the real creator all the time. I was sent to Tingen City half a month ago, and soon after I learned from a secret prayer person that they were trying to make the evil god. Arrival plan. I killed the 2 secret prayers who were the host of the plan by sneak attack, and reported it under the pretext of they attracted the attention of official Beyonders, but according to what those 2 people said, they had already planted seeds in Tingen. Even if I kill them, it will only be delayed for a while. If the seed cannot be found, when it erupts, the entire city, even the entire Lone Kingdom will be completely destroyed. This. After hearing Snow's words, Klein felt his hair stand on end, but at the same time, he began to think about strategies to deal with it. Report Snow to the church? Klein dismissed this idea as soon as it appeared. Not to mention that he had no reason to report a person who had been judged by the captain as not suspected. Even if he was caught, he could only know that Tingen was facing a crisis. On the contrary, if he is allowed to continue lurking in the Aurora Society, he may be able to find out more information. And the other party seems to know a lot of secret knowledge. If he is allowed to join the Tarot Club, he should be able to get a lot out of it. The most important point is that this person has a bottom line. Just, what do you want to say? Directly ask him to investigate relevant information? Would this be inconsistent with the fool's image? Or do you directly allow his prayer? But what kind of excuse to use? Or let him join the Tarot Club directly? Seeing Mr. Fool at the head of the long table stroking the edge of the long bronze table in a leisurely manner, Snow knew that this gentleman must be struggling with how to organize his language. When giving Mr. Fool a step down, Mr. Fool suddenly chuckled and said, "I'm a fool who likes exchange of equal value. If you want to get something, you have to pay the corresponding price. What can you pay? My everything. My soul. My flesh. As long as you want, I can give it to you." Snow answered almost without hesitation, but Mr. Fool chuckled and shook his head, "I have no interest in the flesh and soul of mortals." Speaking of which, Klein glanced at the emotion that was sliding towards despair, and said leisurely, "But I can give you a chance. You can use everything you can get, from me, from other people who are similar to you, to get what you want. Pay attention, it must be of equal value. By the way, I'm also very interested in your information about the arrival of the evil god. As a reward, I allow you to pray to me to digest the potion. In addition, the meeting time is every Monday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Remember to keep yourself alone, of course. Before that, you need to choose your code name." Mr. Fool hinted that Snow could continue to use the information about the arrival of the evil in exchange for benefits, while taking out a pair of tarot cards and spreading them out on the long bronze table. The members of the party decided to use the name of the tarot card as their code name, but Justice and the Hanged Man already have masters and cannot choose. Devil. Snow looked at Mr. Fool calmly. Without any hesitation, he reported the code name he had decided by throwing a 20-sided dice before he came. "I'm just a prisoner bound by chains now, but I hope that there will be a day when my incarnation is reversed and I can break free. Remember your choice and don't succumb to temptation." The current Klein is indeed much more tender compared to the Backlund period. Back in reality, Snow immediately lifted the concept of stolen exchange concept that contacted Sesame Castle, began to close his eyes, and began to pray silently, "A fool who does not belong to this era, you are the mysterious master above the grey fog, you are the king of yellow and black in charge of good luck. I pray for your help, I pray for your favor, I pray for you to allow me to digest it smoothly potions." This set of prayer incantations is so standard, but if there are others present, all they can see is that Snow constantly draws a reverse cross on his chest, and shouts, "The creator of all, the shadow. The Lord behind the veil, the fallen nature of all beings." The reason for such a state is that the passive clause inscribed by Snow in the white horse is not a horse. In addition to the one used to shield the pollution of knowledge and the gaze of the gods, there is another one. The real creator is a hidden existence, and the object of my prayer is also a hidden existence. So in the eyes of others, when I pray to a hidden existence, I am pointing to the real creator. The reason why such a sentence is inscribed is mainly to cover up your unreligiousness. After all, you live in a cult where you have to pray to the Lord when you meet in the morning, noon, and night. If you don't pray, it is equivalent to announcing that you are pagans, but once they pray, they will irreversibly slide toward the abyss. Therefore, Snow has put such a disguise on himself. As long as he prays to himself when prayer is required, the members of the Aurora Society will naturally see it. to his devotional side. In fact, he originally wanted to achieve the effect of anyone who sees him praying will think that he is praying to the gods he believes in, but he found that if he did so, his spirituality was not enough to pay for the consumption of activating this ability. The starting of the white horse is somewhat similar to the use of electrical appliances. When starting the ability, you must first pay a momentary high voltage to complete the activation, and then stably output the low voltage to continue to take effect. If you can't even get the minimum voltage to start, even if there is a Qi perpetual motion machine, he can't add entries, which also leads to Snow theoretically being able to borrow all the abilities of this pathway through Originium, but what he can really activate is only the abilities below sequence 6 of course. Another major factor is that, with his rank of sequence 9, he can only know the ability information below sequence 6 at the highest. By the way, the high pressure that opens the entry is not related to the difficulty of the entry, but to the personality of the ability itself. The simple concept of stealing is only the ability of sequence 6, even if he uses this ability to directly block the starry sky. Pollution and the gaze of the true God, the activation consumption did not exceed his spiritual upper limit of a sequence 9. Of course, if there is no 1-foot bar, even if it is only continuously turned on for 5 seconds, the spirituality consumed is enough to drain a sequence 7. Based on this clue, Snow judged that the entry let the observer think that he is praying to the gods that the observer believes in should be related to some extraordinary abilities of the high sequence of this pathway, in addition to stealing the concept. With Snow's current authority, he doesn't even know what sequence G's ability is, but he knows that at least in the low sequence stage, he absolutely cannot afford it. Snow's prayer continued well into the evening. During this process, he could clearly feel that with each Hermes language prayer, an additional crack would appear in the solid shell of the potion. Praying to Mr. Fool is really good. Snow resisted his excitement, looked at the already dusky sky, and shook the bell at the door to order a dinner. If this progress can be maintained, it should no longer be impossible to digest the magic potion within a month. After lifting the most urgent crisis at present, Snow finally breathed a sigh of relief, and then began to think about a question: why is it that you have the same source quality, and you even have more uniqueness, but there is almost no feedback when you pray to yourself, while praying to Klein will give you feedback that is no less than real creation? Is it because of your own state of mind? Probably not. If I can't get feedback because I know I'm not a big boss, then now only Klein of sequence 9 shouldn't give feedback. After pondering for a long time, and even unknowingly finishing dinner, Snow finally came up with a more reasonable guess, because what he pointed at when he prayed to the Fool was not only Klein, but also the mark hidden in the Origin Castle, hidden in his body, that belonged to the imprint of Fuxian Xianhuang Tianzun, and it was this imprint that gave the secret prayer potion generated enough feedback. Then, on the other hand, does it mean that there is no remnant of secret existence on the white horse but not the horse? If this guess is true, it is undoubtedly a great news. Ever since he traveled to this world and realized that his golden finger is a source of quality, Snow has always wondered if he is a big guy resurrected. But now? No, I'm not sure yet. Maybe this is just a deliberate game. You must be cautious, maintain your humanity, and remember that you are just acting. Snow patted his face, who was handsome enough for Aurora to take the initiative to pull him, and let the tingling pull him out of the newly born Si Sugzu. He is now in a world that is only 19 years away from the doomsday. Every day that passes means the doomsday is approaching 1 point. He does not want to be powerless when the doomsday comes. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com will take at least 19 years to climb to the level of sequence 4, and only by becoming a demigod can it be possible to protect oneself in the apocalypse. Although the members of the Tarot Club had a sequence 4 per capita at the end, and occasionally a sequence 3, this was not the reason for Snow to relax at all. Relying on the protection of the white horse and not the horse, he once again recalled the plot of the original book in his mind, and then began to formulate the next action plan. Give me a list of your extraordinary materials. In the hidden room of the underground exchange of the Evil Dragon Bar, a beautiful girl with a round face said while looking at the old man wearing a black soft hat in front of her. Although she had already covered most of it with a veil, she opened her face, but she still couldn't hide her beauty, and the sweet voice that captivated the soul even made the old man's heart tremble. Although this woman is very attractive and her tone is like an old hand, the old man did not violate the rules because of this. The burly man stretched out his hand and took out a notebook from under the counter, turned to the latest pages, but only gave a symbolic glance. He said, "A water ghost's brain tissue, depending on the degree of integrity, ranges from £3 to £15. Star crystals cost £150 per 50 grams, and a queen bee plant costs £200. Adults. I want the queen bee grass." The girl casually reported the materials she needed, with no intention of bargaining at all. The old man was not surprised by the girl's boldness. He took the scraps of banknotes handed over by the other party and counted them quickly. After confirming that the amount was okay, he rang the bell and asked someone to take the materials from the safe. The girl took the tin box containing the materials, and after confirming that the contents were all right, she immediately turned around and left the bar. "If you don't have the eyeballs of the black abyss devilfish, go to another party to see. If you don't have it, you can only find those guys." Ugh! Klein, who was sleeping soundly, was awakened by the sound that suddenly appeared in his head. The layers of interlaced illusory shouts, accompanied by the reverberation of invisible whispers, even caused his spirit to become irritable and messy. He seemed to be about to fall asleep when he heard the quarrel upstairs blowing the table and hitting the floor. Well, he heard the quarrel while he was sleeping soundly. Klein bounced off the bed with a swift thud and resisted the irritability in his heart. He pinched the throbbing temple with an inexplicable look on his face. This was not the first time this had happened. After recovering his emotions, he turned his eyes to his right hand. Sure enough, on the back of his hand, 4 black dots appeared again at some point. "It's only 6 o'clock. Who is praying to me at this time?" Klein glanced at the mechanical wall clock on the wall. Although there was still some traces of getting up on his face, he quickly took 4 steps in the opposite direction and came to the grey fog. His figure suddenly appeared in the place like a giant's residence. In the towering palace, the crimson stars that are constantly shrinking and expanding are also reflected in the eyes. Klein raised his right hand, spread his spirituality, and touched the star that symbolized the devil who only joined the tarot club yesterday. With a bang, his eyes instantly became blurred and distorted. The man in the shirt and the black vest was sitting by the window, facing the morning light, clasping his hands against his buried forehead. "A fool who does not belong to this era, you are the mysterious master above the grey fog, you are the king of yellow and black in charge of good luck. Thank you for your grace, allowing me to have a wonderful morning. Allows me to have a wonderful morning. Have a wonderful morning." After listening to Mr. Devil's prayer in a manic and chaotic state of mind, Klein's expression became strange. "You had a wonderful morning, but you're going to disturb my sleep." But what can he do? As an ancient and great being, do you want to tell this believer Mr. Fool is going to sleep? Please postpone the prayer for 2 hours. What's more, Mr. Devil still needs to pray to digest the potion. It's really not easy to be a secret existence, but I'm so miserable just being a believer. Those true gods face millions of believers, and they don't need to sleep. Klein arranged the righteousness in his mind to comfort himself, then sighed softly, and passed his response to the crimson star along the subtle connection. "I know. I know. I know. I know." Along with the layers of mist that appeared in front of him, a distorted and blurred figure appeared in the deepest part of his field of vision. His eyes were crimson, and his voice kept echoing in Snow's ears. Feeling that the solid shell of the potion was cracking again, a satisfied smile appeared on Snow's face. He took a deep breath, and then stood up and began to welcome the day. Although he said so, he actually had nothing to do. He could only stay in the room and use the improved typewriter of Emperor Roselle to write books or something. Yes, writing books, although his predecessor's job was a veterinarian, but after arriving in Tianjin, he stayed in his room all the time, and even let Triss do the killing. Under such circumstances, Snow, who had a lot of spare time, was extremely bored, so naturally he could only do his old job in his previous life and pass the time by writing books. But to be honest, for Sequence 7, Triss, who has stealth, curse and other abilities, and is a noble Sequence 7, killing 2 unprepared secret prayers can exchange for those quite high-end and useful mysteries. Learning knowledge is really worth it. As for why it was Triss who killed him, Snow wanted to carry forward the tradition of the Jigui, claiming to be responsible for this incident. Of course, it is to make a good impression on Mr. A. Well, you read that right, it's a good impression. Aurora will only have lunatics and deeply hidden lunatics. The more you act like a lunatic, the more reassured Aurora will be. Especially if you can show a relatively rational appearance while being crazy, and serve the real creator wholeheartedly, then you are your own person among your own people even if you kill your own people. While muttering about Jigui's corporate culture, he tapped the keyboard. Characters appeared on the manuscript paper, and Snow quickly entered the state. Jojo, human abilities are limited. I learned one thing from my short life. The more you play tricks, the more you will make mistakes in unexpected places. He tapped the words that were almost inscribed in DNA, and the picture that almost appeared in front of him was transcribed into words and inscribed on the page, and Snow's hand speed became faster and faster. After he confirmed that Huang Witch's taste is really good, Mr. Tao left the comics as a private plot, and decided to start writing something to pass the time. Read www.yuyugonshu.com. He then had the idea of carrying Jojo. He is not worried about being noticed by Klein, or in other words, if he can notice it, it is in line with his hope because he needs an intelligence source. According to the memory of the predecessor, Penridax is indeed an ancient noble family, but it is not the kind of big family that has mastered the sequence pathway. In order to make it smoother for him to show all kinds of secrets, Snow is planning a more adventurous plan. He intends to make Klein think that a certain ancestor of the Penridax family is likely to be a transmigrator like the Emperor. Although he has not yet decided whether the ancestor of the transmigrator is a grandfather or a great-grandfather, this is something that can be left blank. He will not tell Klein how prominent his family is, nor will he deliberately say that his ancestors are transmigrators, but he will leave various traces in his life, and let Klein make relevant judgments by himself. This is just an idle move, but it is very important. After all, in his opinion, it is very difficult to eliminate the traces of a traveler on a person. Not to mention Mr. Wang's sassy bag, not to mention the priest Mazi and the goddess sister who copied the scriptures, even Klein's body is full of disgust. The atmosphere of this era. Maybe in the eyes of ordinary people, this kind of temperament is just a personal style, but in the eyes of people who are also transmigrators, this kind of temperament can easily attract attention. It's okay to have a low sequence now, but in the future, when Klein's sequence improves, his experiences increase, and his eyesight becomes stronger, these qualities in himself will become more and more obvious. In fact, Snow was not very worried about losing his vest in front of Klein, but in order to make the knowledge in his hands reasonable, he decided to hide his identity. A traveler from a distant time and space, the contradictory spiral of logic and wisdom, the reflection of knowledge, the back of truth. The honorable name recited in ancient Hermes reverberated in the spiritually sealed room, and a solitary candle made a crackling sound. Snow put 2 drops of men's perfume on the flames, and suddenly a bluish-white flame was splashed, mixing with the fragrance to create a vortex, madly absorbing Snow's spirituality. I pray to you, I ask you to give me strength, give me the power to complete the paradox spell. Cardamom, please pass the power to my spell. Ambergris, please pass the power to my spell. Along with Snow's chanting of the incantation, layers of whispers echoed in his ears, and with the infusion of his spirituality, a white cloud in the shape of a horse galloped in his mind. Snow did not hesitate, picked up the carving knife and carved the symbol on the one-penny coin, which had worn away the head and words, and re-engraved the complex patterns. A strange, twisted force that seemed to be contrary to all truth also surged into it. The continuous spiritual consumption is not worth mentioning for Snow, who is about the same as the uniqueness. With the spiritual consumption like flowing water, the spells transformed from penny coins are arranged in front of him. Hey, it's a lot smoother than I imagined. Snow played with the coins, feeling the spirituality in them, the corners of his mouth raised slightly, and he didn't know whether he had higher authority over origin quality, or because a white horse is not a horse. It is inhabited in his soul, and his own process of corresponding to himself is far easier than K always. He doesn't need to summon himself, and he doesn't need to open the door of summoning. He even replaced the pure dew and vanilla he used with a bottle of male perfume. By the way, the ambergris and cardamom in his incantation are actually the ingredients of his perfume. After all, you should pray to yourself, just do whatever you want. Anyway, you have enough spirituality, and you don't need to use spiritual materials to reduce consumption. But there are both good and bad things. For example, he can't store things in a white horse or a horse. After excluding labor, he stuffed the paradox spell that cost 1 penny into his pocket. Snow wanted to find a place to test the power of this spell. But unfortunately, he can't guarantee that he is now out of the surveillance of the night watchman, and as someone who has lived in a hotel for half a month without going out, he must be noticed when he goes out suddenly. Wei Wei suppressed the bear child's mind who got the new toy, and Snow returned to the bedside and began to tease Lily. By the way, Ruri was the name of his kind of ruined short-hair cat. In fact, he has planned a perfect schedule for himself. I got up in the morning and prayed to Mr. Fool, and then started to code. After lunch at noon, I started to learn the ritual knowledge obtained from the potion. In the afternoon, I used the ability of Pavlov's dog to attach consciousness to Lily and go out for a walk, and then go to bed on time before 9 p.m. By the way, he must drink a glass of hot milk before going to bed, then do physical training for half an hour, go to bed, and fall asleep immediately, never leaving fatigue and stress to the next day. But like most schedules, this plan didn't last long, not because Snow lacked perseverance, but because on the second day, a twisted spirit body with a long mouth appeared in Snow's room. Middle. It seems that Mr. A's messenger is not as fast as a train. Snow murmured inwardly, but immediately took the envelope from the other party's hand and watched as the spirit body, which did not meet the new standards of the Aurora Association, disappeared again. Then tore open the envelope, shaking off the not too long letter inside. Mr. Penridake's, I have already received your letter. Because of the foolish actions of the 2 secret prayers, you do not need to feel guilty and panic for your decisiveness, and the Lord will not blame any devout believer. Even the devout believers of the Lord's summoning ceremony require a lot of preparation. A fraudster who is not even a lamb needs no attention. The notes you intercept are of high value, which is enough to exchange for a listener potion. Presumably your potion digestion is about to end, and I look forward to your return. Your friend, Mr. A. Friend? When it doesn't involve the real creator, Mr. A is really polite. Snow looked at the graceful and elegant words on the letter paper, grinned, and at the same time was slightly relieved. The great Mr. Fool is on the line, otherwise he'd be thinking about running away with a bucket now. After all, he is the seedling that Mr. A has high hopes for. As I said before, once you drink the secret prayer potion, your personality will inevitably be distorted, so the extraordinary of the Aurora Society is either a lunatic, or a lunatic who hides deeply. But he is also a lunatic, but his status in the Aurora Society is also of 3s, 6s, and 9s. UU reading www.uuganshu.com. Ordinary lunatics belong to the lowest level in the Aurora Society. These guys who are completely unable to control themselves will only end up being consumed as cannon fodder in battles, but they will not be allowed to touch anything involving conspiracy and trickery. The second is the lunatic who looks like a normal person. This kind of person can often have a relatively reliable identity, can hide in the crowd, slowly develop lambs, and strengthen the power of the Aurora Society. They are the backbone of the Aurora Society. And Snow, on the other hand, is the third type, a rational madman with an excellent identity. As a veterinarian, Snow has been in and out of high society for a long time, and he also has a considerable network of contacts, keeping in touch with many ladies and young ladies of noble families. Such an identity allows him to easily get in touch with the upper circles of the Lone Kingdom. For the Aurora Society, such an identity is undoubtedly quite rare. More importantly, he also has a handsome face that can represent the corporate aesthetics of the Aurora Club. It is precisely because of this that, in order to allow him to pray to the Lord more frequently, so as to be promoted as a listener who can make better use of this status as soon as possible, Mr. A threw him from throwing a stone to a demigod Backlund. Transferred and arranged to Tingen, a peaceful city that is rare even in sequence 7. And looking at the meaning of Mr. A's letter, as long as he has digested the potion, he can return to Backlund immediately, and then he will be promoted to the listener, and he will start telling the ladies and daughters about the glory of the rap master. Snow put the letter in front of the candlestick and lit it, but turned to look at the calendar on the bedside table. Looking at the red circle on the calendar, a gloomy smile appeared on his face. Maybe before he returns to Backlund, Mr. A will come over first. The light of the morning light passed through the glass window with some cracks and sprinkled on the almost flawless and beautiful body. The warm feeling continued to play with the girl's body, adding to her early morning sleepiness. But this art-like beauty didn't last long. With a slight noise, the girl who was sleeping soundly jumped up from the bed, her watery eyes staring at the direction of the window, until when I saw the black cat, I finally relaxed a bit. Although the benefits you send are really eye-catching, I won't pay more for it. The words spit out from the black cat's mouth instantly made the cuteness fall into pieces, and Triss picked it up from the bed. A shirt was draped over his body, and he said indifferently, "I thought you weren't coming." "How could it be? I've always been serious about trading." The black cat jumped onto the girl's bed, raised its paw and waved it earnestly. It was obviously a cute gesture, but in Triss' eyes, it was extremely hateful. "The things are here, where's the information?" Triss took out 2 tin boxes and a few packets of herbal powder from under the bed, and the black cat stepped forward to check one by one, before nodding and saying, "Edgar Einhorn, the Admiral of the Fisak Empire, is also the iron-blooded knight of Sequence 4. By the way, the Hunter Path is a sequence controlled by the Einhorn and Sauron families, so if you want to hunt Iron Knights, and Jaeger is dead, you can start with these 2 families, but I personally recommend Sauron. After all, Einhorn is the royal family of the Fisak Empire. Then you will give me a demigod of the Einhorn family." Triss wasn't interested in the information about the black cat in front of her, or she herself was not so eager to inquire about the information about the demigods. In contrast, she still cares more about what about the information you said is closely related to me? Why is the witch sect so keen to train men to become witches? It's very simple, because they want to get close to the original. Well, the name of the can't be said casually. In short, you have to understand that the true pointed to by the assassin's path has risen from male to female, and as the apex of this sequence, he naturally influences this pathway from top to bottom, so that if women take the assassin potion, the difficulty of digestion and the probability of losing control are much higher than those of men. The black cat said slowly, pacing, and Triss froze instantly, because in addition to its own meaning, the words of the black cat seemed to contain a big thunder. "True God, also drink sequence potions." "Drink? Don't you know that the true rank is also called sequence 0, right? Why is there usually no sequence 1 when there is a true God sequence?" "Because the potion needed by the true God is 3 sequences. One's extraordinary characteristics." The black cat burst into thunder without any scruples, and Triss was even a little dazed for a while, but soon, she forcibly suppressed the shock of learning such a secret, and drew her attention back so, what do you mean by saying that I am the most proud work of the witch sect? Do you know what kind of person has the fastest sequence improvement? The black cat did not directly answer Triss's doubts, but asked instead. It happens to belong to the occupation pointed to by the acting method. Triss didn't intend to go around in circles with the black cat, because she knew that it would definitely give an answer, so she didn't take the time to think about it, but gave a relatively reliable answer casually. Almost, but it's just a sequence. The black cat shook his head gently, pressing one paw on the box containing the extraordinary materials. The easiest way to improve the sequence is often those who are similar to the top of the sequence, because any sequences will be affected by the top-level existence. As I said before, under the influence of the original, the male assassin potion is easier to digest. Similarly, the more similar you are to the true of the sequence, the more likely you are easier to digest potions. So, you mean? I'm very similar to the original. Triss said softly, then frowned. Is there any problem here? That's right, it looks like you are still sensible. The black cat showed a satisfied expression, stretched out his front legs and popped out a few claws. What is the most important key to acting? Triss didn't answer because she didn't know. It looks like they didn't tell you. The black cat opened his mouth and showed a terrifying smile. Then let me make up for the education in this area. The core of the so-called acting method is a sentence: you are just in play. I'm just acting. Triss vaguely remembered that when the black cat commented on playing a witch before, he had said it before, so he was reminding himself at that time. Only. Does it have anything to do with it? Although Triss faintly noticed something, she still asked. Because if you go too deep into the play, it's not that you are digesting the potion, but the potion is digesting you, and your character will become closer and closer to the person you play, and then it will eventually coincide with the true God. That's why you say that the more similar people are to the true God, the easier it is to digest potions and advance to the sequence. Triss only felt her scalp tingling, although she didn't quite understand the key issues. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com, but just the fact that the personality is affected is already very scary. If you don't know this key, will you slowly get into the play when you are acting, and then be affected by the potion, and finally treat yourself as a woman completely? That's the truth. The black cat nodded, waved it a few times, and then suddenly changed his expression, and said in a gloomy tone far exceeding the previous one, but compared to these, the most important thing is that when you are similar to the true God to a certain extent, you will become the best container for the other party to come to reality. Boom! Triss only felt that her brain was about to boil. To become a vessel of divine descent? Is this the purpose of the witch sect, to cultivate itself? She doesn't even have to think about what it will be like to be descended by the true God, even if it is just the mental imprint of the Sequence 9 potion. It is enough to make the Beyonder completely lose control. How can there be a good result when the spirit of the true descends on her? She took 2 steps forward and stared at the black cat in front of her. Just before she was about to speak, the black cat suddenly said in a disgusting tone, "What? You want to grab it back after the deal is reached? Who wants to shoot your stuff?" Triss took a deep breath, trying to regain the destroyed atmosphere, but she failed. In desperation, she had to ask directly, "Tell me, why are you telling me this? Every word you said today is far beyond the value of the Sequence 9 potion. I've always been serious about transactions." The black cat replied seriously, and Triss frowned. "I don't think selling gold at the price of a stone is a serious act. No, I mean, the value of this sentence is not as good as the Sequence 9 potion.